Right, hello everyone, and welcome to Diesel's channel, Diesel Arsenal. Thanks very much for coming and joining us. Basically, what I'm doing today on Diesel's channel is to talk to you about the Loch Ness monster story. Last time I was on, I did about Bigfoot, and today we're doing another really intriguing story, and this one is the Loch Ness monster, as I said. So I hope that you're going to enjoy that. It is a really great story, and there's lots of intrigue in it and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's going to be really interesting, and you're going to really enjoy it. I'm convinced about that. Anyway, so without further ado, let's see if I can get this thing moving. So what's happened here? What are we doing? Oh dear me. Hold on just a second, guys. I'm just having a bit of a technical issue here. I'm sure it'll get sorted out in a minute. No, it won't let me put the... That's very strange. Oh, well, look, I did have a load of slides, but it won't allow me to show them, unfortunately. I don't know quite why that is. But if I can't get it to go in a sec, I am just going to continue on and just read from my notes and talk about it, because it's just a bit of added, just adds a little bit extra to it, but never mind. Let's get on with it. So what is the Loch Ness monster? Well, I'm sure we're all aware of what it's alleged it looks like. The Loch Ness monster, or Nessie as it is affectionately known, is a creature in Scottish folklore that is said to inhabit Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. Now, it's often described as a large, long-necked creature with one or more humps protruding from the water. And popular interest and belief in the creature has varied since it was brought to worldwide attention in 1933. So where is Loch Ness? Well, basically, if you look at a map of Scotland, it's sort of how can I describe this? It's sort of about halfway up the country, and it sort of basically splits the country from southwest to northeast, and like a line right across the middle there. So anyway, before we go on, I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the comments. And Maddie says, "Evening, Warren. I'll hop straight back in here in a few minutes, sir." Okay, mate, no problem. Static says, "Hello, Warren and Diesel, if he's around too." Unfortunately, he's not, mate, so it's just me. Joanne says, "Hello." Hi, Joanne. And then Craig Malloy, "Evening, mate." Fair play to Craig and Joanne. And Joanne says, "Not sure about this, to be honest, if it exists." Well, hopefully I'll hopefully try and clear it up for you. Jeff Cross says, "Hello, mate. Here, all good with. Hope all's good with you." Yeah, I'm good. Steve RFC says, big up yourself, mate, as well. I hope you're good. And then Craig Malloy says, "Manny, big up." And Steve RFC says 9 likes. Yeah, please, everyone, smash that like button, please. It really helps Diesel with his channel. So please make sure you do that. And if you haven't subscribed to Diesel's channel already, please do that. And please, if you don't mind, give mine a little sub as well. That would be nice if you want to. Manny says, "Big up yourself, Craig. You're good. You're good, mate." I guess that's a question. Anyway, hold on, there's some more. Manny, not too bad, fella. How are you? And Steve RFC says, I'm looking forward to new football season because of our World Cup in November. Arsenal will play Thursday, Sunday, almost every week in group matches, much bigger than last year. Well, it's going to be a bit tricky, I think, for Arsenal, but hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll be able to do well. But let's see what happens. Hopefully Arsenal won't get in a group with Rangers. That's the prospect of that absolutely terrifies me. But anyway, let's talk about the Loch Ness monster. As I was saying, Loch Ness, it's sort of about halfway out the country, and it runs from how would I describe it? It runs from the southwest, or sort of just above halfway southwest, up to the right northeast of the country. So that's basically where it is. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later because it is quite important in this story. Now, Loch Ness is a freshwater loch in the Scottish Highlands, and it's southwest of Inverness, if any of you know where Inverness is. And it's 37 kilometres long, which is 23 miles, and it flows from southwest to northeast to the northeast of Scotland. It is the second largest Scottish loch by surface area. It's 56 kilometres, 22 square miles after Loch Lomond, but due to its great depth, it is the largest in volume in the British Isles. So it's the biggest, second biggest loch in Scotland by surface area, but in terms of volume of water, it's the biggest one in the whole of the United Kingdom. At its deepest point, it is 230 metres deep, or 126 fathoms, or 755 feet. Actually, I told you a little lie. Actually, it isn't the deepest. The deepest loch in Scotland is Loch Moira, which apparently has got a monster as well. So there you go. But we'll be talking about a bit more about that in a little while. Its surface is 16 meters, 52 feet above sea. At its surface, it is 16 meters or 52 feet above sea level, and it contains more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. And it is the largest body of water in the Great Glen, which runs from Inverness in the north to Fort William in the south. So that's what I'm saying. It's sort of Fort William is sort of in the southwest, and Inverness is in the northeast, and it stretches between those 2 points. So it gives you some idea about the size of the thing, because it is absolutely huge. It really is. And the loch is one of a series of interconnected murky bodies of water in Scotland, and its water visibility is exceptionally low due to a high peat content in the surrounding soil. So because of that, the water is almost pitch black. If you go under the surface in Loch Ness, you can almost hardly see your hand in front of your face. It's that dark. Let's see. And Steve RSC says, been that part of the country, but not seen Loch Ness. Mate, you need to go, because it is pretty wild, I'm telling you. And LFC Red Yem, I think that says, big up, Ryan. Hello, mate. I hope you're doing all right. Nice to see you. And Manny says, Definitely not fit for swimming or boat rides. Well, you can go for boat rides. They do have trips up and down it in boats, but I wouldn't advise going swimming in it unless you want to get bitten by Nessie, of course. That is, but no, in all seriousness, I would not advise swimming in it because it, like any water in this country, I'm not completely convinced about how clean it is or anything like that. But yeah, and not only that, the water is quite choppy. So if you're not a strong swimmer, you could like get into a bit of trouble. And if there's pike in there as well, that's another issue, because those of you who don't know, pike is like quite a large fish, and there's a large body of water near where I live, and pike have been known to attack small dogs and stuff like that. So I wouldn't advise it, to be quite honest with you. So anyway, so let's talk about how the Loch Ness was formed. It is believed by some that many hundreds of millions of years ago, Scotland had two separate land masses. Now, as I was saying to you before, Loch Ness, it sort of, you can see it on a map, and it's like this bit through the middle of the country, but it's not sort of straight line across like that. It's more like cut from the northeast down to the southwest. And at that time, the theory is that there were two land masses, and it was separated by a body of water that stretched from the northeast down to the southwest, and at both ends it exited to the ocean. So Loch Ness was formed as a tectonic lake, which was formed by the land coming together around the Great Gren Fault. It is alleged that this happened about 400 million years ago, when it slid about 100 kilometers southwest along the Great Glen Fault to where it is now. And when this happened, it created a long linear lock in between the two land masses. So it sort of basically closed in on itself. But what is interesting to note as well is that this fault line actually continues in the southwesterly direction all the way over to Ireland and beyond. So it's not just, this fault line isn't just under where Scotland is. It continues right down and goes through Ireland as well, and further afield than that. So the history of the Loch Ness monster. So let's have a little chat about that. Now, the first known encounter with the legendary beast, as far as I've been able to find, goes back as far as the 1st century AD, when the Romans arrived in northern Scotland and they saw the Picts, who were an ancient peoples who lived in the northern parts of Scotland, and the Romans saw their carvings of a beast on rocks and so on and so forth. I did, unfortunately, because I can't get these slides to work, I did have some pictures of that to show you, but unfortunately I can't, because it won't let me show you these slides. I'm really annoyed about it, to be quite honest, but still, never mind. That's all part and parcel of being a YouTuber, I suppose. But anyway, so let's carry on. So when the Romans saw these carvings and so on that the Picts had made, they described it as being something that they did not recognize, and they claimed that it had a long beak or a muzzle and a strange spout and flippers instead of feet. So it sort of tends to fit in with the modern sort of idea about what Nessie looks like, really. And it is interesting to note as well that in ancient Scottish folklore, that many large bodies of water concealed huge animals. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story here, and I don't want you to think I'm absolutely off my head, right? Because I don't think I am. I might be, but I don't think I am. Now, I remember years and years ago when I was a kid, when I was still at school, my family and we went to visit family in Dunfermline, which is just north of Edinburgh. And while we were there, we were staying with my great aunt. And this particular day, my dad and my great aunt started having the chat about what we were going to do the next day. And he was telling her about how we were going to go to Loch Ness and whatnot. And she was saying, well, what do you want to go there for? What's to see there? And he said, well, there's obviously the Loch Ness monster if it shows its face and whatnot. And she said, what are you talking about? No, there's no monster in Loch Ness. It's in Loch Lomond. And that just sparked this massive argument between the two of them, and it got really heated, right? But what it shows to me is that what I was saying earlier about Scottish folklore and like monsters being quite commonplace in large bodies of water. And there is actually stories of a beast in Loch Lomond as well. Now, I'm not making it up. If you want to check it out, Google it, because type in lake monsters or lake monsters or loch monsters in Scotland, and you'll see it. All right. So yeah, there was this massive argument, and it got quite heated and whatnot. We still went to Loch Ness, by the way, but we didn't see anything. So, but I don't remember there being any further comeback about this this discussion, though. That's for sure. Now, the first written account of an encounter with a Loch Ness monster was in a biography of Saint Columba, and this happened in 565 AD. And in this account, it is claimed that the monster bit a swimmer and was about to attack another man when St. Columba stepped in. Now, basically what happened was that St. Columba was stood on the bank, and there were some boats or something on the other side of the loch tied up, and he wanted someone to go and untie one of the boats. And one of the people he was with swam over to go and get one of these boats, and in the process, apparently he got bitten by the Loch Ness monster. And when the monster had its fill, the first guy decided he hadn't had enough, and he wanted a bit more, and he was going to take a chunk out of another one. But then, so St. Columba stepped in, and he ordered the beast to back off and go back, which apparently it did do so. And apparently, during this altercation with the beast, St. Columba made a sign of a cross, and the creature backed off. How true that is, I've got my doubts, but there you go. That's what the story says. The incident was recorded in the Scottish newspaper, and after this, there were several other sightings. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong part there. Sorry. So after this, there are only really occasional sightings of the beast. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about a chap called George Spicer. Now, in modern times, the legend of the Loch Ness monster began to grow after about 1933. And this coincided with road, which is adjacent to Loch Ness, being completed and opened for use by the public. And this road gives an unobstructed view of the loch. So after this happened, more sightings began to get reported. And around this time, in the April, a couple came to have seen an enormous creature, which they described as being like a dragon or a prehistoric creature, when it crossed in front of the car and disappeared into the water. The incident was reported in a Scottish newspaper, and after this, there were several other sightings in December 1933. Right, before we go any further, I'm just going to see if there's any more chats in here. We'll never think of you that way, sir, says Manny. Okay, Manny, thank you very much. So, yeah, let's continue on now. So they claimed that they saw this beast and it crossed in front of their car, and then it sort of disappeared into the loch, and that was that. And it was reported in the newspaper, and after that, it sparked several other sightings in December 1933, and it seemed to spark something of a bit of a frenzy about the Loch Ness monster. And something I was watching the other day referred to it as like a gold rush of something akin to a gold rush. And I think that's quite a good way to describe it, really, because the place was swamped with people. People were trying to get photographs of it. I'm assuming because the press were like willing to pay quite a lot of money to get, decent photograph of the beast and be the first paper to be able to produce photographic evidence of this thing. And this moves me on to my next point. We're going to talk now about a guy by the name of Marmaduke Wetherell, who from this point onward would have quite a large part to play in the Loch Ness monster story. Him and his family, let's say. Now, following on from this, the Daily Mirror, following on from the incident with George Spicer and his partner in their car, the Daily Mail commissioned a guy named Marmaduke Wetherell. What a name, by the way, Marmaduke Wetherell. It's absolutely blinding. Who was a big game hunter to try and find the creature. He claimed to have found some footprints which he believed belonged to a very powerful soft-footed animal, about 20 feet long. Now, these footprints, it turned out, upon closer inspection by zoologists at the Natural History Museum in London, said that the tracks were identical and made with an umbrella stand or ashtray that had an hippopotamus leg as a base. Now, and the only thing is with this was that Wetherell's role in this whole unsavoury carry-on was unclear. It wasn't really clear how much part he had to play with it. But yeah, apparently the footprints were completely fabricated. Whether he actually made those footprints or not is unclear. But they were completely fabricated. They were basically what happened is that it seems that there were these ashtrays and they were used to make these footprints, and he used it as evidence. So there you go. Now we're going to come on to probably the most legendary photograph which is called the surgeon's photo. Now, let me just try and... No, I'm just trying to think if there's another way I could get to show these pictures, but I can't. Now, the surgeon's photo is the one where the beast is sort of like that, and it's like looking at, and it's sort of its head sort of a little bit back. But it's, if you want to see it, you'll be able to go and do, if you do a Google search and put in surgeon's photograph Loch Ness monster, you're going to see it. And even if you put Loch Ness monster, it'll be by far the biggest and the most popular photograph that you're going to see. If you do Google image search for it, that's what you're going to see. Right, this photograph is absolutely iconic. It's almost as iconic, well, it's probably more iconic actually, than the film footage that we saw two or so weeks ago when I did the Bigfoot story of the film footage of the thing, that Bigfoot character walking that we saw. So yeah, honestly, it is. That footage is just like by far and away the most famous Loch Ness picture ever produced. Now, the surgeon's photograph seemed to act as a catalyst for numerous efforts to prove the monster's existence. Now, in 1934. An English physician named Robert Kenneth Wilson photographed the creature, and the iconic image, as I refer to it as, it's known as the surgeon's photograph, appeared to show the monster's small head and neck. Now, the question is the surgeon's photograph a hoax? Right? Now, even to this day, it's still really hotly debated, and I'm going to tell you about what I think, because I don't think it's... A lot of people recently have said, yeah, it's a hoax, it's definitely a hoax, and it was alleged like in the mid-90s that it was definitely a hoax, but I'm not convinced, and I'm going to tell you why. And is the surgeon's photograph a hoax? As I said, it was widely accepted to be a hoax, but as I said, in my opinion, it is not so cut and dried to say that it definitely was. And what happened was, in 1994, 60 years after it graced the pages of the Daily Mail, Christopher Sperling verified the photograph as a hoax by admitting his involvement in its production. Now, Sperling was the stepson of Marmaduke Wetherell. Now, remember that, because this is quite key. He was Marmaduke Wetherell, as I said to you before, was a famed big game hunter who had been hired in 1933 by the Daily Mail to find the Loch Ness monster. He returned from his expedition with his tail between his legs and his head bowed, after all of the shame of what had happened with the faked footprints and what have you. And this was because of the findings of the Natural History Museum, when they determined that the footprints were actually fakes and not real at all. Now, humiliated, Wetherell retreated from public view, and after Sperling revealed the photograph as a hoax, he explained that Wetherell had enlisted his help to create a model of the monster's neck and place it on a toy submarine. Now, Robert Kenneth Wilson was chosen to give the photograph to the media because of his trusted reputation as a doctor. Now, I mean, we all know that people who who come from certain professions will always be trusted more highly than your average run-of-the-mill person, right? It's a fact. It's the way that British society works, that if you're a surgeon or you're a doctor or you're a lawyer, whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be trusted far more than what Joe Bloggs would say, all right? So if I went and took a photograph of a Loch Ness monster and presented it to the world, and then say, you know, Fred Jones, who's a highly decorated surgeon, went and did exactly the same thing, they're going to believe him more than what they would me. That's just the way that it works. Whether it's right or not, it's another kettle of fish, but that's just the way it is. Now, the thing is about this, right? Given Sperling's relationship with the disgraced Wetherell, I do not have any doubts over whether Sperling's claims can be taken seriously. Sorry, I do have doubts over whether Sperling's claims can be taken seriously because of the desperation with which Wetherell sought to become the first person to prove the existence of the Loch Ness monster. And the way that he was disgraced after it was found that he had attempted to fraudulently deceive the world over the existence of the mythical Loch Ness monster. So it's no surprise to me that Wetherell's stepson, Sperling, would seek to discredit anyone who has sought to achieve anything that his stepfather had not been able to achieve. And when you add to the equation that the allegations made by cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman that the materials required, the materials that it was alleged were used to construct the model, and that was used in the alleged hoaxed photograph, makes the case against the hoax become even more compelling, because this cryptozoologist claimed that the materials that would needed to be made to create this model were just not around at the time that they made the model and then floated it on the loch in order to take the photograph. So given that that's the case, then I just find it improbable, at the very least, that it would definitely be the case that it was a hoax. So before we go any further, I'm just going to have a quick look at some of these chats because I can see that there's some more in. David Dundes says, morning, all hope that you're well. Nice to see you, David. Good man. Delboy Gunner TV, hi Ryan, Diesel and all in the chat. Nice to see you, Delboy. Good to see you, man. And David Dundas says, breaking news, Arteta has signed the Loch Ness monster to replace Saka. It has a smaller turning circle. Yeah, well, probably it wouldn't surprise me. Manny says, big up to Del. Excited for the... And he asks if you're excited for the Ukraine game. I'm sure he is, man. Right, so let's move on. In 1994, right, it was alleged that the photograph was a fake, as it was claimed that the physician had sculpted a model of the creature's body and neck and head from plasticine and then attached it to a wooden board, which in turn was attached to a toy submarine. It is alleged that the model stood approximately 12 inches high and 14 inches long. Now, as I said earlier, in a recent documentary, though, entitled Loch Ness Monster New Evidence, which is, I still think it's available on Sky TV because I watched it the other day. Very, very good documentary, I have to say. In this documentary, a cryptozoologist by the name of Lauren Coleman poured cold water on the idea that the photograph was a fake by citing, at the time the photograph was taken in 1934, the materials that it is claimed that the model was made from were not readily available. And the issue that I have with this theory about that photograph being a fake is not only about the materials, is that I doubt very much that the model, which stood 30 centimetres tall or 12 inches high, would have been able to stand upright for long enough for them to get a decent photograph. Because the water on Loch Ness, I don't know if any have been there, it's not smooth, it's quite choppy. And I can't imagine that the thing would have stayed upright. I would have imagined that it would have kept toppling over, and particularly as well if the water would be as choppy as what it normally is, because it's not like your normal standard lake. It's almost like a sea. When you go and you see waves on the sea, I'm not saying it's got waves in it, I'm not, but it's not completely smooth at all, and I reckon it would have had trouble standing up. I really do. The problem is that on most days the waters on Loch Ness are quite choppy, which is what I was saying, and so therefore a small model as described by those claiming that the photographs was a fake would, in my opinion, struggle to stand upright and would almost certainly topple over. So, okay. So, the Daily Mail printed the photograph, sparking an international sensation. Many speculated that the creature was a plesiosaur, which was a marine reptile that went extinct some 65.5 million years ago. And there have been numerous photographs submitted since then which appear to show creatures in Loch Ness looking extremely similar to what is believed as the plesiosaur. Now, I remember as a child, I went to Loch Ness, and whilst we were there, we visited the visitor centre, which is across the road from the banks of Loch Ness. And I remember seeing lots of underwater photographs of what appeared to be a plesiosaur. And it seemed to match most of the eyewitness accounts of those who had claimed to see the monster. Now, in October 2006, a New Scientist article, Why the Loch Ness Monster is No Plesiosaur, Leslie No of the Sedgwick Museum in Cambridge said that the osteology of the neck makes it absolutely certain that the plesiosaur could not lift its head up swan-like out of the water. So what he's saying is that there's no way that it would have been able to hold its head up like you see in all these photographs of it. It just wouldn't happen. Also, it should also be remembered that the loch is only about 10,000 years old, dating to the end of the last ice age. Before then, it was frozen for about 20,000 years. If creatures similar to plesiosaurs were indeed living in Loch Ness, they would have been seen frequently, since they would have had to surface several times a day to breathe. Now, in response to these criticisms, Tim Dimsdale, Peter Scott, and Rory McEl postulate that a trapped marine creature that evolved from a plesiosaur directly or by converging evolution. And Robert Pines explained that the horns in some sightings function as breathing tubes or nostrils, which would allow the creature to breathe without breaking the surface. So what these people are saying is that it's possible that the creature isn't a plesiosaur, but it has evolved from a plesiosaur. It's become a different creature that evolved from a plesiosaur, much the same way that human beings have evolved from apes, something like that. That's what they're trying to say. Now, numerous photographs have been submitted as evidence of the monster's existence, but these were mostly dismissed as being fakes or merely showing other animals or objects. So Loch Ness has attracted a number of monster hunters down the years, and there have been several sonar expeditions of the loch, notably in 1987 and 2003, with the aim of locating the Loch Ness monster, but none of them were successful. Now, I remember on one occasion, there was this guy, and he basically paid for a load of small ships to go up and down the lake trying to catch this thing on like a sonar. And I remember all the headlines at the time saying, there is no escape for the Loch Ness monster. It will not be able to hide any longer. But it did, and it got away. So there you go. It never got found. Now, Loch Ness has attracted a large number of monster hunters, and there have been several sonar explorations of the loch, notably in 1980. Oh, sorry, we've already talked about that one. Sorry. Then there were, in 2018, there was a DNA survey. Now, a group of researchers conducted a DNA survey of Loch Ness in an attempt to find out what organisms lived in the waters of Loch Ness. And it is claimed that the results of this survey did not show any signs of a plesiosaur or other such larger animal. Now, I've got a couple of things to say about that. First of all, how would they know what the DNA of a plesiosaur looked like? Secondly, unless they'd taken it off a bone or something, they may claim that they've been able to get it off a bone of a plesiosaur that they've been able to find in, in one of the museums, but I don't know. I've got my doubts about it. And then, would you be able to get DNA just from water samples in a large body of water like that? I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm not convinced by it at all. And there's a couple of chats here. And David Dundas says the whole Loch Ness monster thing has been very good for the local economy. It really has, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while, David. And yeah, so yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a little while, David, and yeah, because that's a very interesting point, and I think it's important that it needs to be talked about, really. Now, however, the DNA survey did show that there were numerous eels living in the loch, and so as a consequence, some people started to question whether the creature, affectionately known as Nessie, was in fact an oversized eel. Now, To best of my knowledge, an eel can grow to what, about 6 foot at most? That's going to have to be some oversized eel if people are confusing it with a bloody dinosaur, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, man. I think that's a bit mad, if you ask me. Now, despite the lack of concrete evidence, it is believed that Nessie contributes nearly £80 million to the Scottish economy. So that in itself is one of the many factors as to why I do not want this mystery to be solved, because there's a number of reasons for it, and I'll come to those. Tourism is Scotland's #1 industry, and Nessie plays a big part in that. And in excess of £80 million part. And if it was proven that Nessie did not exist, it could put a massive dent in the Scottish economy, which consequently could lead to thousands of jobs being lost. Also, if it was proven to exist, some person would try to catch it and kill it. And my question to that would be, well, why do we think that we've got the divine right to go around killing innocent animals for sport? And I find it a bit obscene. That's why I'm really not into fox hunting and stuff like that. So yeah, I just don't think it's right. I just don't think that we should be going around killing animals for sport or just to prove that they exist. I just think it's a bit crazy, to be honest. And then for it to be put on display to the paying public, so that someone that has too much money already can then go and make a bit more. I just think it's obscene. But that's just my opinion. Now, let's have a look at some of the explanations for Nessie. There are a number of explanations for what it has been suggested that people are seeing. One of them, according to a chap by the name of Ronald Binns, a former member of the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau, he claims there's probably no single explanation, that no catch-all explanation of what the monster is, and that I tend to agree with that. I think it's probably lots of different things. Binns wrote 2 skeptical books: the 1983 book, The Loch Ness Monster, A Mystery Solved, and his 2017 title, The Loch Ness Mystery Reloaded. In his books, he argues that an aspect of human psychology is the ability of the eye to see what it wants to see and it expects to see. This may be categorized as misidentifications of known animals, misidentification of inanimate objects or effects, or reinterpretations of Scottish folklore, hoaxes, and exotic species of large animals. Now, I have got some sympathy with the idea that it's lots of different things that people are seeing, and that could possibly be what it is. But that doesn't mean to say there ain't some undiscovered beast that's living in the water that no one has yet discovered. I just don't think that should be ruled out at all. A reviewer wrote that Binns has evolved into the author of the definitive skeptical book on the subject. No, that may be true and maybe not. But all I'm saying is that I don't necessarily disagree with what his idea that it could be lots of different things. So And interestingly, he didn't seem to rule out the idea that it could be a large exotic beast. So there you go. Binns does not call the sightings a hoax, but a myth in the truest sense of the term, and states that the monster is a sociological phenomena. So there you go. Let's see what we've got going on in here. Carne AFC's in the chat. How you doing, my man? Hope you're well. Carlos Eduardo, love how this is going. Yeah, mate, thank you very much. Be a lot better if I could get these damn slides to work, that's for sure. But never mind. I'm sorry about that, people. Yeah, while we're on the subject of how it's going, please don't forget to put a like on the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to Diesel's YouTube channel if you're new to his channel. Also, don't forget to follow him on Twitter and Instagram. At the beginning of the show, I did put a few comments in the live chat with links for those. So please make sure you go and do that. And also, please don't forget, people, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please go and do that for me as well. That would be much, much appreciated. Thank you very much. So, on we go. So, misidentification of known animals. Now, this is one potential explanation. And some of these are that when people are seeing what they believe to be the Loch Ness monsters, in fact, they're seeing a large eel. Now, this was an early suggestion for what the monster was. And eels are found in Loch Ness, and an unusually large one would explain many of the sightings. This idea, though, was dismissed because eels move around side to side like snakes do in the water. However, sightings in 1856 of a sea serpent or kelpie in a freshwater lake near Lourbost in the Outer Hebrides were explained as those of an oversized eel, also common in Highland lakes. Now, I'm going to talk about kelpies in a little while, so don't worry too much about that. From 2018 to 2019, scientists from New Zealand undertook a massive project to document every organism in Loch Ness based on DNA samples. And this goes back to this thing I was talking earlier about the DNA samples. And that was the main focus of the documentary that I watched a few days ago about Loch Ness. It is a very good documentary because it not only does it focus on this DNA survey, it talks about lots of other things to do with Loch Ness as well. Their reports confirmed that European eels are still found in the loch. No DNA samples were found for large animals such as catfish, Greenland sharks, or plesiosaurs. But as I said earlier, what are they comparing this against? How would they know what plesiosaur DNA looked like? And that's what I'd like to know. Because as far as I know, we haven't got any alive anywhere unless there's one in Loch Ness or other lakes around the world, which, and again, that's something we're going to look at in a little while. Now, the other thing it possibly could be is elephants. Now, although elephants don't live wild in this country, in a 1979 article, a Californian biologist by the name of Dennis Power and geographer Donald Johnson claimed that the surgeon's photograph was the top of the head and extended trunk and flared nostril of a swimming elephant, photographed elsewhere and claimed to be from Loch Ness. Now, in 2006, paleontologist and artist Neil Clark suggested that travelling circuses might have allowed elephants to bathe in the loch. The trunk could be perceived head and neck, with the head and the back perceived as humps. In support of this, Clark provided an example of painting. So, I mean, I could see how that could potentially happen, but again, like I say, that's why I think it could be lots of different things that people are seeing, in not just one particular thing. It could be lots of different things. Now, the Greenland shark. Zoologist, angler and television presenter Jeremy Wade investigated the creature in 2013 as part of the series River Monsters and concluded that it is a Greenland shark. The Greenland shark, which can reach up to 20 feet in length, inhabits the North Atlantic Ocean and around Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, and possibly Scotland, and it is dark in colour and has a small dorsal fin. According to biologist Bruce Wright, the Greenland shark could survive in fresh water, possibly using rivers and lakes to find food, and Loch Ness has abundance of salmon and other fish. Now, let's see what else. Have we got anything interesting in here? I don't think so. So misidentification of inanimate objects or effects. So trees. Now, in 1933, the Daily Mirror published pictures with the caption, the queerly shaped tree trunk washed ashore at Foyers on Loch Ness may, it is thought, be responsible for the reported appearance of a monster. And then Psyches and wakes. Loch Ness, because of its long, straight shape, is subject to unusual ripples affecting its surface. A seiche is a large oscillation of a lake caused by water reverting to its natural level after being blown to one end of the lake, resulting in a standing wave. The Loch Ness oscillation period is 31.5 minutes. So there you go. So it shows that it's not always completely flat. So optical effects. It shows what I just talked about there, but the psyches and the wakes, it shows that it's not always calm. It is quite choppy. So that's why I was going on about how I wasn't convinced that this model that is alleged was used to fake the surgeon's photograph, holds that much water, because I just don't think it would stay upright long enough so that they could get a decent photograph of. But who knows? I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I did not see anything, as Harson used to say. Anyway, optical effects. Wind conditions can give a choppy, matte appearance to the water, with calm patches appearing dark from the shore, reflecting the mountains. In 1979, W.H. Len showed that atmospheric refraction could distort the shape and size of objects, animals, and he then later published a photograph of a mirage of a rock on Lake Winnipeg that resembled a head and a neck. So there you go. Possibly could be that, I guess. Seismic gas. Italian geologist Luigi Picardi has proposed geological explanations for ancient legends and myths. Picardi noted that in the earliest recorded sightings of a creature, the life of St. Columba, the creature's emergence was accompanied with loud roaring. The Loch Ness is along the Great Glen Fault, and this could be a description of an earthquake, which sounds great, but the problem is we don't really get earthquakes in Scotland at all, or anywhere in the UK for that matter. Many reports consist only of a large disturbance on the surface of the water. This could be a release of gas through the fault, although it may be mistaken for something swimming below the surface. Now, folklore. In 1980, Swedish naturalist and author Bengt Sjögren wrote that present beliefs in lake monsters such as the Loch Ness monster are associated with Kelpie legends. For those who have never heard of the term Kelpie, it is a Scottish name given to a supernatural water horse that was said to haunt Scotland's lochs and lonely rivers, and it was usually described as appearing as a horse, but also able to adopt human form, as in the case with the legend of Morag, who hails from Loch Mora. According to Sjögren, accounts of loch monsters have changed over time, originally describing horse-like creatures that were intended to keep children away from the loch. And Sjögren wrote that the Kelpie legends have developed into descriptions reflecting a modern awareness of plesiosaurs. The Kelpie, a water horse the Kelpie as a water horse in Loch Ness was mentioned in an 1879 Scottish newspaper and inspired Tim Dinsdale's Project Waterhorse, a study of pre-1933 Highland folklore. References to Kelpies, waterhorses and water bulls, and it indicated that Loch Ness was the loch most frequently cited. Now, hoaxes. Now, obviously, this is probably going to be quite a big one. A number of hoax attempts have been made, some of which were successful. Other hoaxes were revealed rather quickly by the perpetrators or exposed after diligent research. And one of these such hoaxes was, I'm going to talk about in a second, but the other issue here is that I do find it a bit disrespectful and arrogant, I have to say, of these so-called or self-appointed experts to claim that people who claim to see the Loch Ness monster have misunderstood what they've seen, or that they were simply making it up or suffering from a form of mass hysteria, which is why I put on the thumbnail about are we all suffering from mass hysteria, right? As Diesel himself quite rightly said last night in his show, when he briefly touched on the subject, and I think he said something along the lines of, are you seriously trying to tell me that all the hundreds of people who claim to have seen something in that loch that appears to match that of the descriptions appear to match that of the Loch Ness monster are wrong, or what they saw wasn't what they thought it was, and that it's just sightings from people who have been this is just the sightings of people who have been brave enough to come forward with evidence. And he was spot on. He was absolutely saying that And he went on to say that, are you seriously trying to tell me that all these people don't know what they've seen, that they've misunderstood what they've seen, and they're making it all up? No. And he went on to say as well that surely at least one or more of them has to have seen something and they've got it right. So yeah. Now I'm sure that at least twice as many people, I'm convinced as well, that at least twice as many people who have seen something, there are twice as many people who have seen something and haven't come forward as those that have. And I believe it's because of the fear of what the repercussions would be for them if they did report seeing something. Like the ridicule and the teasing and the humiliation. I remember years ago, my mum used to work as a nurse at night, and the hospital she worked in was like one of the highest points in the town where the hospital was. It's so high, in fact, that the police used to come out there and sit and watch what was going on in the town because they could see everything quite clearly from there. But one night when she was there, she and her workmate, so she wasn't the only one who saw it, reckoned they saw a UFO. And the abuse that they got from their workmates was bordering on, not harassment, but it was bordering on, how do you describe it? Just not very nice, really. And no one believed her, and they thought that she was making it up, and she got ridiculed and whatnot. Poor woman, but I believed her. Anyway, so we're not talking about UFOs, we're talking about Loch Ness monsters. So let's talk about that. So the unwillingness, this business about unwillingness to come forward and report things, particularly things which are deemed as being a bit different or a bit off key, is being deemed as such a problem in the United States that in a recent congressional hearing into UFOs, because at present there's a massive congressional hearing going on in the United States about the UFO phenomena, and the Americans are undertaking a serious program of work to address this issue because they believe it is seriously hindering their efforts to effectively deal with craft which are of unknown origin, which are coming in to the world's airspaces and acting with seeming impunity towards the world's air defences. So they're basically just coming in, doing what they want, going around saying, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And then they just disappear again, and there's nothing we can do. So anyway, moving on, and they're so concerned about this business about people not coming forward and reporting stuff that they're undertaking this massive piece of work to try and encourage people to come forward because they're so concerned because they see it as a massive national security threat, which it is. You get bloody things coming in, like flying around, doing what they want, and no one knows who they are or what they are and where they come from. It is a national security threat of the highest order, right? But it also relates to Loch Ness as well, because if people don't come forward and talk and aren't taken seriously, how are we going to get to the bottom of what's going on? What if there is some really serious issue there? So this needs to stop. Anyway, so in 2004, a 5TV documentary called Loch Ness Monster: The Ultimate Experiment used cinematic special effects experts and, a long-necked dinosaur model, tried to convince people that there was something in the loch. They constructed an animatronic model of a plesiosaur, calling it Lucy, and despite setbacks, including it falling to the bottom of the loch, about 600 sightings were reported where she was placed. So there you go. They in 2004 they tried to make a model of a plesiosaur, and it kept floating to the bottom, and they had problems with it. So that's what I'm saying. Like 70 years before, they're expecting us to believe that they were able to produce something that they were able to get those photographs of, and saying that it was a hoax. No, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I really don't. Other explanations. So one theory claims that the Loch Ness monster is a creature which is able to travel through dimensions. So, we spoke before when I was doing the video about Bigfoot, that one of the reasons why it seems to appear and disappear almost at will is because it's traveling interdimensionally, which is what people are saying that this Loch Ness monster phenomenon is about. That it's traveling through some sort of portal, and it's like traveling from either a different dimension, or it's using these portals to travel backwards and forwards through time. And that's why people are seeing it, and then it suddenly disappears again. So that's one possible explanation for it. I'm not completely convinced about that. The difference with this thing and the Bigfoot is that the Bigfoot shows signs of high intelligence. I'm yet to hear anything of anyone saying that the plesiosaur is a highly intelligent creature. Not saying it's not. It potentially could be, because it is alleged that dolphins are far more intelligent than any other creature in the world. They're not as intelligent as us, but they rank them, all the creatures in the world, and dolphins were highly, highly intelligent. And all these clicks and stuff that they have, they believe it is some form of language. And American scientists were so convinced of this at one point, whether they're still doing it or not, I don't know. But they were studying trying to study dolphins to work out if it was a language, so that if we ever did encounter an extraterrestrial race, it would help us and speed up our efforts to work out what they were saying when they were trying to communicate with us. Whether that's absolutely true or not, I really don't know. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Now, another theory, as I was saying, claims that the creature swam through some form of portal which has transported it through time from either the Triassic period, about 203 million years ago, or the Jurassic period, prior to 65 million years ago. And that's why the reason it's so difficult to find evidence of their existence, which would explain why it is that we're not being able to find any strong physical evidence of there being a plesiosaur in existence in the loch. Now, let's quickly have a look at other lake monsters around the world. There are numerous reports of other lake monsters from all over this planet, and I mean all over, including the United States, Canada, Colombia and Argentina in South America, all over the UK and Ireland, Costa Rica, Italy, China, North Korea, Norway, Iceland, Congo, Japan, Kenya, Uganda, Malaysia, New Zealand, Poland, Russia, Sweden, Tanzania, Thailand, Turkey, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Now, with regards to lake monsters, like I said, much earlier in the show, near where I live, there's a very large body of water. It's nowhere near as big as Loch Ness, but it's a big body of water. And it is believed that there are some massive pikes living in there, because on at least a couple of occasions, dogs have been attacked that have been swimming in the lake by pike. And one occasion, one got killed. And a couple of days later, its paws washed up onto the surface of the lake. So, you know, that must have been some bloody fish to do that. You know, because pike, any of you don't know, pike is probably at least like 3 foot long, if not more. It has like razor sharp teeth, and when I was a kid, I used to go fishing quite a lot, and you always used to be quite fearful that a pike would come along, because if you got bitten by one of them, you'd know about it. Let's put it like that. Yeah, and if they're attacking dogs and stuff, then, you know, that's a serious business. So, other lake monsters in Scotland. Now, Loch Ness is not the only place in Scotland that has reports of monsters living in its waters. For example, just a few examples of these are Loch Oig, which has a beast which is said to have like a shaggy dog-like head. There is said to be a beast called Morag, which inhabits Loch Morar, and is allegedly a mermaid-like creature, and it has a beastly death omen. And in Loch Lochy, there's been a beast residing in its waters known as Lizzie, which it is alleged was first seen in 1929, and Lizzie is said to have 3 humps and resemble a plesiosaur. Now, Jess is in the chat. Hi, Jess. Nice to see you, mate. He's saying, interesting show, Warren. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it, mate. Yeah, unfortunately, the slides didn't work. I've got no idea why. A bit gutted, to be honest, because it's not the same without my slides, but still, never mind. You know, it happens, doesn't it, I guess. Then there's one in Loch Oig. It's said to have a plesiosaur-like beast in it, and it has also been described as a warthorse or kelpie, and a serpent with a horse's head. And then last but not least, as I mentioned right near the beginning of the stream, Loch Lomond is alleged to have a large plesiosaur-type creature, but it has also been described as resembling a large crocodile. So there you go. Now, let's move on. I'm just going to have a little chat with you now about what I think. Now, my thoughts on it. The first thing to say is that there have obviously been sightings of something unusual in Loch Ness, going back further than recorded history, as per the rock carvings made by the Picts. And as to what it is that people are seeing, honestly, I have to be completely honest with you, I have got no bloody idea. I honestly don't know. And I don't think anyone does, to be quite frank. And I think I agree with that chap when he said it's lots of different things. I honestly got a lot of time for that. I do think that's highly likely. That it's not just one single thing that people are seeing. I think they're seeing lots of things. Now, up until recently, I did believe that it was a plesiosaur. And after seeing the documentary about the DNA samples, I'm not as convinced as I was before, but I don't really completely buy the argument about the DNA for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, about, in my opinion, there being a lack of suitable subjects to compare it with. So, yeah, I'm not convinced. If someone could explain to me how that works, then I'll be willing to listen. But I just find it difficult to know how they would have had something to compare so they would know what plesiosaur DNA looked like. That's my opinion about that. I still think it's possible that it's a plesiosaur, but I don't think it's as likely as I did before. The problem as well with it is not just the DNA samples, it's the fact that Loch Ness didn't really exist much before about 20,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago because of how it was formed and when it was formed. But that doesn't mean to say that when it was open to the ocean, like a creature like a plesiosaur couldn't have swum in to Loch Ness and decided it liked it where it was and that it stayed living there and they've been stuck in there because it sort of sealed itself up after the Ice Age and whatnot. That's entirely possible. But whether that's what happened or not, who knows? I've got a clue. Thirdly, there's not been many sightings, and the last reason for it is about the fact that Loch Ness didn't really exist much before 30,000 years ago, because, like I say, because of the way it was formed. And I would suspect, like from what that expert said, that they would expect to see far more sightings of it. But maybe there have been sightings, but people just don't want to come forward. Like I said, there is a problem with people wanting to come forward and put their head above the parapet. And to be honest with you, I don't blame them. It's possible, highly possible, and I'm starting to believe this more than I did before. It's possible that it's an as of yet undiscovered creature which has descended from a plesiosaur. So I think that is highly likely. I'm certainly not going to rule it out. But the thing I'm sure about is I do not believe that all these people who have seen something are suffering from a form of mass hysteria, and the fact that there are numerous reports from all over the world which are of similar nature and are all going way back in time leads me to think that there is something going on that of large creatures living in these lakes. I really do. And I'm still not convinced that it isn't a large undiscovered creature that we haven't found yet, because it's happening all the time. We're finding out about creatures that we didn't know about before, and there are large parts of this planet that have been they haven't been investigated. I mean, 3/4 of this planet is covered in water, for goodness sake. And I heard this guy on one of these documentaries the other day saying that they know more about more about the rocks on the moon than what they do than the rocks on the bottom of Loch Ness. And that tells you all you need to know. That's why I'm not convinced it's not a large, as of yet, undiscovered creature. Now, the last thing as well I want to say is that I do not really want the mystery to be solved, because, like I said, if it is proven not to exist, this could have a seriously damaging impact on the Scottish economy and the UK economy as a whole. And the Scottish economy isn't the strongest, and I'm not sure that it will be able to sustain a hit such as that. But on the other hand, if it is proven to exist, then I guarantee you that some clown will try and hunt it down and kill it and put it on public display. And I just think that would be absolutely disgusting. Now, but also remember, it's almost impossible to prove that something doesn't exist, as opposed to proving that it does exist. So that's the good thing, I suppose. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Please don't forget to put a like on the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to Diesel's channel. Please don't forget to follow him on Twitter and on Instagram. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Warren's Team Talk. I'm hoping to have a review of Arsenal's season out in the next few days. I'm going to be working on that tomorrow, and hopefully I'm going to have that out before the weekend. If not, then over the weekend. But keep your eyes open for that. I'm also going to go and appear on Jez's channel. So thank you very much to Jez for asking me to do that. I'm absolutely honoured to be able to take part in that, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, I'm not really sure what Diesel's got coming up soon, but if you haven't watched that stream he did last night, make sure you watch it, because it was wild. It was absolutely superb. He spoke a little bit about football, spoke a little bit about Loch Ness, but it was mostly about what's on TV at the moment. It was brilliant. It really was. I really, really enjoyed it. So big respect to Diesel, and massive thanks to Diesel and respect to him for letting me come on and do this on his channel tonight. And lastly, but by no means least, thanks to all you lot for coming in the chat tonight and throwing in your comments and whatnot. And listen, I'm really, really sorry that I wasn't able to get the images up. I'm absolutely gutted about it. I really am, and I'm really, really sorry from the bottom of my heart. So I don't know what went wrong, but something clearly is not right. But that's life, I guess. I hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment too much. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please, if you're watching on playback, please put some comments in telling us what you thought about the show. Also, everyone, please let me know, or Diesel know, what you'd like us to cover in a future show. I know Diesel's quite keen for me to do a show about the Roswell incident, when an alien spaceship is alleged to have crash landed in Roswell, New Mexico, which I'm quite happy to do, because that is a mad subject. I can also talk about crop circles if you want. There's a few other things that people also put in that they wanted me to talk about as well. I'm going to go through that, and maybe I'll do a little stream on my channel where I just read out some of the subjects and let you guys decide what you want it to be about. and we'll see. Yes, either put it in the comments, or just, contact either me or Diesel and let us know what you want, and I'll be happy to do it. And the next time I do this will be in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, everyone. Please look after yourselves and all your loved ones and families. So yeah, thanks very much. Like I say, it was really great chatting to you all. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day. And like I always say, please keep talking, and please share some love and kindness around the world. And yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Take care, and yeah, be good. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Cheers. Bye-bye. Dear.